two, one, two, three.
Hello and welcome to Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Teresa Alt. Today we will hear Wayles Browne asking Anne Grady Flores of Catholic Worker about how to stop a genocide. So take it away, Wayles.
Okay, Marianne, you told me that on October 3rd, Friday, October 3rd, you went to Port Elizabeth. What is Port Elizabeth and why did you go there?
The port in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is right next door to Newark Airport, is the third largest port in the United States. And through that port, the company Maersk Maersk is how they pronounce it,
Yeah.
and Zim trucks deliver weapons that are going to be shipped to Israel's genocide. So we, 100 people, went to uphold law, both moral and legal law. And that's a quote from my sister Ellen Grady, who was one of the 4 arrested.
Okay, well, what happened? You were there too, right?
I was there, yes. And so before dawn, in the wee hours, the sun had not come up, there was an autonomous group of 100 of us, including many Ithacans, who went out into this, it's actually 10 lanes of traffic. So 4 lanes going towards the port, 4 lanes coming out, plus the 2 turning lanes. So 10 lanes. And we went out into the street and we stopped the truck traffic for 45 minutes on this major road into the Port Elizabeth. And we had banners reading, "Stop sending weapons to a genocide." Zim and Maersk send bombs that killed children. And it was totally peaceful. We had, chants. We had an Irish bagpiper there. And we also had, it was a joyful gathering. We had drummers too. So, but this peaceful act was in solidarity with the people of Gaza and also with the global Samud flotilla, which has just been intercepted. And now the people from that have been recently released, telling us about the torture they've experienced, like the Palestinians that are being held in the prisons there. And also this was in solidarity with the many port shutdowns, and most notably, the Italians who have shut down their whole country in the last week and a half. So we are trying to get on board and put Port Elizabeth on the map as being a major thoroughfare for U.S. weapons being sent over.
Okay, now you accused the shipping companies of breaking laws.
Yes.
That was U.S. and international laws both?
Yes.
Yeah, can you explain that?
Sure. So the United States, back after World War II, and since then, have laid out and ratified with the 100% of our Congress and president in years past. And so the laws that we've passed here and over time are the U.S. War Crimes Act, the Leahy Law from Senator Leahy, the Foreign Assistance Act, the Arms Export Control Act, and the Genocide Convention Implementation Act. So we went there to uphold these laws and prevent these unlawful weapons shipments. And protesters peacefully came to uphold all those laws. And here's the thing, Wales, there's a law, it's called the Federal Rules Decision, which is in a book in Washington, D.C., which links all of the laws international laws that are in existence when we sign and ratify those international laws, it becomes a part of the supreme law of our land. And when the government is not upholding those laws, then the citizenry are obligated to uphold the laws. And I learned this at the knee of Ramsey Clark, the former Attorney General of the United States, in previous actions against drones.
Okay, so the international laws that you're referring to, that would be the Convention Against Genocide?
All of them, the
Mhm.
whole list that I just read, the U.S. War Crimes Act, the Leahy laws, and all of those laws say you cannot send weapons to a genocide. The United States cannot send weapons to a genocide. And many countries have signed on to the international law versions of that, the Genocide Convention Implementation Act. So there are many laws that we went to uphold peacefully, nonviolently.
Okay, so you went to the port
Yeah.
and you blocked the highway leading into the port. That's what you did?
Well, we don't want to use the word blocked. We stopped the traffic. And by the way, my sister Ellen Grady, was arrested. And as the squad car was taking her to the police station, which is a good 8 minutes of fast traffic, she witnessed the backup of the thousands of trucks for miles. And so that cost the port itself millions of dollars within that hour. So, and then Ellen was one of 4 people that was arrested. It was our neighbor from Trumansburg, Mark Scabelia Carver, my sister Teresa Grady, and then Daniel Creamer, all Ithacans. And Teresa said, I asked the police to stop those trucks to inspect them for the weapons because we need to be doing this together. You know, the police, I was chosen to be the police liaison. And I said to each of them, as I spoke to them, I said, I understand you have a job. You have to keep, I mean, as they said in the charging instrument, you know, we have to keep the traffic flowing. Well, when the traffic is violating laws, you got to stop. Everybody's got to work at this together. So, yeah, we did it. And 45 minutes, but actually it went on. We stood outside or on the side of the road for up to an hour and a half. And it was great. The presence, the truckers. Actually, when I walked back to the parking lot where we had parked, there was a whole line of traffic because, as I said, even the Google Maps were saying, well, because of the protests, there's backed up traffic. I was talking with each trucker, you know, through my eyes and through the big sign I was holding, which I hold every Saturday morning on our CBS corner by Wegmans Bridge. And it says, stop arming Israel. You would not believe how many thumbs up we got from those truckers. So they were with us.
So I can say there's some tangible results from
Yes.
going there.
Yes.
I'm curious, why did they arrest 4 people and they're all from Ithaca? When you say that there was over 100 people present.
These folks, except for Daniel Creamer, the others have had years and years of experience of pushing the limit and just doing the going limp and getting in the road and getting in the road and getting in the road. So we understand that part of the witness is when you go to court and then you can explain your case to the court, even if that's in front of a jury, and challenge the court on the illegality of what's going on in that port.
Is that going to happen? I understand the people got released this time.
Yes, they got released, but they were released with charges. And so far, they're, from our understanding, we have yet to have fuller discussions with attorneys who are, thank God, available for us. Yes, they're in the process. They're trying to, they're learning. They're going to have a Zoom call with the court, and then things will be decided as to when, you know, will charges be dropped? Will they go to court? We don't know any of that yet. But back to your question about why did that happen? The police wanted as quickly as possible to open the traffic. And so they used these nettings after we had used our big long banners, and we had the baby shrouds that Ellen made, 15 of them. And she also brought flowers to lay on the top of each of the shrouds. And somebody else brought 3 adult-sized shrouds. So we had a lot of things. We had 14 security or safety cones, the 3-foot ones that the highway department used. We did as much as possible to create a safe barrier for those of us getting in the street. But then the police pulled people and they, pushed them up to the sidewalk. And it wasn't, the exception was just these few people that said, no, I'm not going to just stay on the sidewalk. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go back in the street and lay down or sit down. Yeah, that they netted us or kettled us up onto the sidewalk. And I actually said to them, oh, you're learning from us because we had our banners that they couldn't get through. And then, yeah, anyway.
What did you have written on your banners?
We talked about how it's illegal to send weapons to a genocide. We said, stop arming Israel, free Palestine, end the occupation, let Gaza live. Zim and Maersk send bombs to Israel to kill children, and so on.
Now, why did you choose that particular date?
Well, the date was chosen because that's when people were available. The week before, there was a massive demonstration on 42nd Street in Times Square that was called by, I'm not sure, but I think the People's Forum and maybe the coalition, the Answer Coalition and other groups. So that was the previous Friday. And then before that, earlier in that same week, the General Assembly was gathering in New York along with the Security Council, and people were demonstrating outside of that as well. And so this was the day that we thought, okay, people will not be too busy and let's go.
Okay, but it's also close to the anniversary of the beginning of the.
Right, but we hadn't chosen it for that, but everything was coalescing, and the Palestinians themselves from on the ground in Palestine and Palestinians here have asked us, because the genocide has been escalated, they've asked us to escalate what we're doing. And as we're following the example of people in Dublin and in France, in Spain, in Italy, I hear Ecuador also did actions at their ports. I think the West Coast dock workers have shut down shipments of the Maersk and the Zim trucks being shipped out to Israel. So this was in solidarity with all of that. We really need to put the economic pressure on Israel.
Now, if I understand right, you've been to Israel and Palestine and seen with your own eyes what the situation has been.
Yes, I don't call it Israel. I call it occupied Palestine. And I didn't go into what has been labeled as the state of Israel. I didn't go into those areas. I avoided it. It actually makes me sick because it is a racist apartheid system. And I lived in the West Bank in Ramallah, and I went to study Arabic. I was the worst in my class. And then I went halfway through the semester, I twisted my ankle very badly. So I went south to join the Christian peacemaker teams, which is now the community peacemaker teams because it's ecumenical. And I lived there and I experienced house demolitions. I experienced people being expelled from their housing and all the rest of the oppression. I mean, I stood next to other people that were having to live under occupation. It is brutal. It is so brutal. We used to try to accompany children just to get to school so they wouldn't be subject to Israeli soldiers beating them or holding them and all the rest of it. We tried to stop an orphanage from being shut down, and we were not successful, even with the help of Jimmy Carter. But I would like to get to the last part of what we did having to do with this action, if I may. Can
In
I?
Port Elizabeth, yes. Yes, come
Yes,
back to Port Elizabeth.
yes, to Port Elizabeth. I can talk more after, but the main thing was in discussing this ahead of time, specifically with Mark Carver. I said, Mark, the Colombian president, Gustavo Petros, was at the UN just the week and a half before, and he called on the General Assembly to use to veto, or I should say, to bypass the Security Council, which has been vetoing every ceasefire resolution, the US and Israel combined. And so to go around that, the General Assembly has a tool that was last used in the year I was born, back in 1956, when the US and Britain used the tool to stop Israel from invading the Sinai. So Petros was calling on the General Assembly to use or get together and create a military peacekeeping force, which would stop Israel. But when I think about that, and I talked with Mark about this, Israel's holding 400 nuclear weapons, and it's backed by the United States, which is a massive military force. I said, what keeping force would be able to stand up to this? And if we look at the example of what just happened this past week when the flotilla was intercepted and all of the members, 400 or plus people that were on those 50 sailboats, they were all kidnapped by Israel. You know, the Italians had promised, oh, we'll send a military accompaniment. As soon as that ship got to the red zone, the military ship took off and went home.
What is the red zone?
The red zone is it's officially the Gaza waters, but Israel says that's their territory. So I asked Mark, I said, so what would you do? He goes, well, the only nonviolent way to stop this genocide is by stopping the shipment of weapons from here. We're the ones sending 80% of the weapons. We send, I think it was on Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Just yesterday, they named the amount of money that the US has sent in the last 2 years. And I think it's like $27 billion more on top of the $3.8 billion that they get every year.
So that's money?
That's money.
That's weapons.
That's money. That's the money. And then through this port, there's hundreds of thousands of pounds of weapons that are shipped on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Oh, okay. Well, you say there's work to be done, but what can people do?
Well, first of all, I always, whenever I go into a classroom and talk, I always say there's the three A's. There's the awareness, the acceptance, and there's action. And so the awareness starts in the head. We have to understand that, yes, indeed, this has been established by all the notable Amnesty International, the UN, and everybody else has been, they've established that there is a genocide going on. And 4 of the 5 points of the genocide, the requirements for what calls, how
the definition of
what the definition is. And the number one thing is the intent. And that intent was stated at the very beginning by Yoav Gallant that said, first of all, they named them human animals, Palestinians as human animals. We're going to cut off all electricity, all water, all food. So the intent was right out there at the beginning. And then the destruction, never before in the history of warfare has there been this many journalists. It's over 270 something journalists that have been targeted specifically and murdered by the Israelis. Never before have so many doctors been targeted specifically, and they have a program. It's called Where's Daddy, to seek out different people. And then when they find out where the person is, they go and wait for them to go home. So then all of their family is annihilated. It's so sick. So, but, in the Vietnam War, World War II, World War I, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, all those wars combined do not equal the amount of tonnage of bombs that have been dropped in this tiny place. Now, I've been using the example of our little beautiful Cayuga Lake. Cayuga Lake is narrow and it's long. It's 40 miles long and it's 2 miles wide. Gaza is only 25 miles long and it's 2 miles wide, except down in the southern area near the Rafah border. That area goes 5 miles wide. People, it's 2.2 million people living in that tiny space. And they have received enough tonnage that's equivalent to 6 Hiroshima bombs, atomic bombs. And I know from my work in Puerto Rico, in Vieques, is that the Viequenses were the proving ground for what was then exported to all these wars. We tested weapons down there in Puerto Rico, but the same proving ground that was used, that Vieques was used for, is what's happening in Gaza. All the new weapon systems are being tried in Gaza. All the new technology, the drones, the surveillance, the newer, and actually they have used the bunker buster bombs that were tested in Vieques that are coated with depleted uranium, that when it explodes, those things aerosolate, and the talc, that it's 4,500 degrees, which is the melting point of glass. Those particulates can be as small as 1/100th to 1/1000th of a micron. And so when children and people inhale it, it sequesters in the bones and in the large organs. And as Dr. Helen Caldecott explained to Reagan, she said, those things are emitting, even though they say, oh, it's such a tiny amount, they emit a low-level radiation in the body, which is what changes the genetic code, for one, and not just for the person, but for every generation afterwards. And it's also a heavy metal. So there's the toxicity of the uranium. If you look at the periodic table, lead is above, or the uranium is below lead. And, it's twice as dense. And that's what gives it the military power to go through metal like butter. So
Okay, well, in the last few
prize.
minutes,
Yeah.
in the last few minutes, come back to what we can do now.
Yes.
Thinking about weapons going to Israel, and there's more than one organization working to stop that. Can you
Yes.
tell us about?
Yes. So right here in Little Ithaca, we have our Ithaca Committee for Justice in Palestine group, and it's an umbrella group where there's many working groups under the umbrella. So for example, we just had an olive festival on Sunday, and we raised almost $2,000 to go to feed, to be donated to the Samir Project, which feeds people in Gaza, and also for UNRWA, which has been feeding people and, educating people and helping with the infrastructure of all of Palestinians since the inception of the State of Israel.
That's the United Nations agency, right?
Correct. And it was established because the people of Palestine were forced off their lands, and they are a stateless people. Even though there's this recognition of Palestine, if you look at the map, there is no Palestine yet. And Israel, or I should say Netanyahu, is insisting there will never be a Palestinian state. We know his goal is to have the greater Israel, which encompasses Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, all the way to the Euphrates River and parts of Saudi Arabia and the Sinai, all of that. And they want to expand and expand, and they're well on their way to that project. If you look at the countries that are being bombed, including Yemen, and they've, bombed in Doha. Anyway, it's pure evil, and we need to stop it. We need to, our liberation is absolutely entwined in this struggle. In everything we see going on in our streets with our ICE agents, pulling people out of their homes and kidnapping them, that's what Israel has been doing for 78 years to Palestinians.
Okay, local contacts again.
Local contacts, the Ithaca Committee for Justice in Palestine. We are also calling to have a meeting with Josh Riley, which has come to deaf ears so far. If you want to email me, you can email me my two last names, no spaces, Grady, Grady, Flores, Flores, and then the numbers 08 at gmail.com.
So Grady Flores 08 at gmail.com.
Correct, yes. And we also have the Berrigan Collective, which has been gathering. There's the students up at Cornell every Thursday in front of Day Hall. They get 1 hour to use a megaphone, and they read off the names of the children that have been killed by Israel. And they also do chanting, and we bring out banners. So you're welcome to come up the hill and
What
join
time
us.
is that?
From
What time is it?
From noon until 1 every Thursday.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday, yes. And there's more. And then the ports need our attention as well. But that's to be continued, and I don't know the details on that.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about the outcome of that.
Yes, for sure.
We have been talking
Yes.
to Mary Anne Grady Flores, a witness and participant in the events in Port Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Asking questions has been Wayles Browne. This has been Ithaca DSA Presents. Thanks for watching.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.